You used to have this electric connection with them. The passion was intense. The chemistry was undeniable. But suddenly, like someone flipped a switch, they went cold. The intimacy faded. They stopped initiating. You tried to spark it again. You dressed up, reached out, gave more. But the more you tried, the further they pulled away. I'm Jim Rohn, and today's video dives headfirst into one of the most painful and confusing experiences in relationships. Why avoidant partners lose interest in sex and intimacy when things get serious. This isn't just about what happens in the bedroom. It's about vulnerability, emotional safety, and the subconscious beliefs that make intimacy feel threatening to someone with avoidant attachment. If you've ever asked yourself, am I not attractive anymore? Are they bored of me? Did I do something wrong? Stop right there. It's not you. It's not your fault. This is a deep-rooted pattern and you deserve to understand it, not internalize it. So hit subscribe right now because this video is going to break it all down in a clear, empowering way. I'll show you how to respond not from fear or panic but from grounded clarity and fierce self-respect. Stay till the end. What you learn today might forever change the way you see sex, intimacy, and yourself. In the early stages of a relationship, especially when an avoidant partner connects with someone, anxiously attached sexual chemistry often feels explosive. Everything feels like a tidal wave: desire, passion, irresistible attraction. And that connection is real. It's not imagined or exaggerated. In fact, it's one of those rare moments when both attachment styles feel safe but in very different ways. For the anxiously attached partner, sex is the ultimate expression of connection. It's where they feel desired, chosen, held. It soothes their fear of abandonment and rejection. And for the avoidant, the early phase when expectations and obligations are low is their sweet spot. They feel attractive, competent, seen in a positive light. At this point, the relationship feels safe, devoid of pressure, free from the burdens of long-term commitment or emotional weight. But then, as the relationship deepens, when the anxious partner naturally begins to crave clarity, consistency, and a sense of us, that's when the alarms start ringing for the avoidant. Intimacy no longer feels like simple physical connection. It begins to represent dependency, expectations, and the loss of personal freedom. Sex, which was once a place of freedom, now becomes a symbol of commitment, responsibility, and emotional engulfment. And so, they begin to withdraw, not because they've lost interest, not because you've done anything wrong, or because you're no longer attractive, but because the progression of the relationship itself, its emotional depth, closeness, and growing attachment triggers a core fear in them, the fear of losing themselves in love. And this is where you, as someone learning to respond with secure attachment, must ground yourself in self-respect, because it's all too easy to fall into the spiral of self-doubt. What did I do? Why don't they want me anymore? Am I not enough? But the truth is, you're not the problem. You're not broken. You don't need fixing. What's happening isn't a reflection of your worth, it's a defensive reaction playing out in them. Understanding this is your freedom. It helps you step out of self-blame and stop trying to prove your worth through overfunctioning or seduction. Instead, you get to step back not in punishment, but in self-honor. In honoring the truth that you deserve intimacy that comes not from fear or pressure, but from true emotional readiness. And as that shift happens, when sex begins to carry the weight of emotional connection, we start to see the deeper psychological dynamic of the avoidant partner. For them, intimacy isn't just about closeness. It's a hidden threat to their sense of independence, autonomy, and the emotional safety they've spent years constructing. When sex is still wrapped in freedom, novelty, and low stakes, they're all in. But when it becomes tied to vulnerability, expectations, and the unspoken message of, "we're becoming one," it triggers their internal alarm. Avoidant partners often come from environments where relying on others was unsafe, where vulnerability was met with rejection, pressure, or engulfment. They learned that to stay safe, they had to be self-contained, managing their emotions and space alone. So when sex becomes a symbol of deepening emotional intimacy, it requires them to open up, to trust, and to allow someone in, and that, on a subconscious level, is terrifying. So when an avoidant partner begins to withdraw from the sexual side of a relationship, it's often not about lack of attraction or boredom. It's a defense mechanism against rising emotional demands. They feel pushed into a role they fear they can't fulfill. From exciting lover, they now feel like they're expected to be a reliable life partner, and that role feels heavy, unfamiliar, and filled with potential failure. To the avoidant, sex becomes a test they fear failing. The more they feel expectations, disappointment, or pressure from their partner, the more they retreat. And they often don't talk about it. They don't explain. They just withdraw. That silence can feel like abandonment to an anxious partner, and suddenly, the cycle begins. The anxious person chases closeness through sex, while the avoidant withdraws even further. Understanding this mechanism doesn't mean you tolerate disconnection, but it helps you stop blaming yourself. You can say, "I've noticed we're less physically close lately, and that's made me feel distant. I'm not pressuring you. I just want to reconnect honestly." Clarity, softness, and non-accusation keep you grounded, neither the chaser nor the victim. It also gives you a chance to reflect. Am I using sex to soothe my own anxious fears? Am I trying to secure connection by overgiving? If so, this is an opportunity to reconnect with yourself and ask, can I love without losing my self-respect? Can I give without self-abandonment? Their sexual withdrawal may not be a rejection of you. Sometimes, it's a silent cry from someone overwhelmed by intimacy they don't yet know how to hold. But you can't fix that for them. You can only stay rooted in yourself. And sometimes, that's the very thing that invites true healing for both of you. And it's precisely in the emotional vacuum left by the avoidant partner that the anxiously attached person begins to spiral into activation. Sexual rejection, even if it's never directly said, even if it's just silent, strikes at the core fear of their nervous system. I'm not being chosen. I'm not enough. I'm about to be abandoned. For the anxiously attached, sex isn't just about pleasure, it's proof. It's validation. It's the place where they feel desired, valued, and safe in the relationship. So when that physical closeness disappears, they don't just feel sad, they feel threatened. As if the absence of sex signals the beginning of the end. From there, a chain of controlling behaviors may follow, not out of manipulation, but from desperation to regain emotional safety. They begin initiating sex more often, hoping that one passionate night might restore the closeness. They buy sexy lingerie, change their appearance, even override personal boundaries just to test, do you still want me? When these efforts are met with avoidance or indifference, the anxious mind slips into doubt and panic. Thoughts spiral. Is he bored of me? Is he seeing someone else? Am I no longer valuable in his eyes? They begin to monitor, checking texts, reading into micro behaviors, asking veiled questions, searching for reassurance that everything is still okay. But these very actions only make the avoidant partner feel invaded, suffocated, and further compelled to withdraw. Another common reaction is the demand for more emotional closeness, not just physical, but verbal and relational too. The anxiously attached partner becomes hyper-attuned. You seem colder today. Why didn't you text me back? We feel distant. Though born from a need for intimacy, these inquiries register as pressure to the avoidant pressure they instinctively flee. The fear of abandonment makes it nearly impossible for the anxious person to sit still in the silence. They feel they must do something, fix something, rescue the relationship. But in doing so, they begin to lose themselves. Their giving isn't from overflow, but from depletion. Intimacy becomes strategy, not genuine presence. And that leaves them doubly hurt, not only by being unmet, but by betraying their own emotional boundaries. This is the pivotal moment where the anxiously attached person must wake up. Stop asking, how can I get him back? And start asking, am I acting out of love for him or out of fear within me? Because when fear drives your behavior, no amount of closeness will ever feel safe enough. No kiss will calm the panic. No sex will silence the fear you haven't yet faced. Their sexual withdrawal doesn't mean you need to become better, more attractive, or less needy. In fact, it's a moment calling you back to yourself. Am I using this person to medicate my fear? Can I love without losing self-respect? The answer isn't in their response, it's in your willingness to pause. Hold your truth and say, I am worthy of love for who I am, not for what I prove or perform. And from that place, if intimacy returns, it does so not as validation but as the natural result of real connection. And if it doesn't return, at least you haven't abandoned yourself to chase someone not yet ready to hold you fully. And then, The very efforts that come from love and longing in the anxiously attached partner become the catalyst that activates the avoidance defenses. While one person is trying to move closer and repair, the other feels increasingly pressured, intruded upon, and emotionally invaded. Thus begins the negative cycle. The more one reaches out, the more the other pulls away. The more one asks for connection, the more silence grows. The more one tries to hold on, the more the other disappears. This doesn't happen because the avoidant wants to hurt you, and it's not because you're doing something wrong. The real issue is that these two emotional systems operate in opposite ways. For the anxious partner, closeness brings safety, it calms the storm. For the avoidant, too much closeness feels dangerous. It raises questions like, am I being asked for more than I can give? Will I lose my autonomy? If I fail to meet expectations, will they leave me? The avoidant brain doesn't interpret intimacy as a loving invitation, it interprets it as a threat to independence. So they retreat, and with every step they take back, the anxious partner feels more abandoned and compensates by moving even closer. This leaves the avoidant feeling cornered, suffocated, and without space to engage on their own terms. They don't hate you, they just don't know how to stay close without feeling like they're losing themselves. This cycle becomes damaging not because anyone's bad, but because both are trying to emotionally survive in their own instinctual way, and that survival mode begins to erode the relationship. You love them, but the love you're giving starts to feel controlling. You crave connection, but unintentionally, your presence becomes something they feel they must escape. And the worst part is, you know it's not working, but you don't know how to stop, because letting go feels like losing them forever. Here's the truth. Both of you are pushing each other away because of fear of loss. The avoidant doesn't know how to hold connection without losing freedom. The anxious doesn't know how to hold themselves without losing the relationship. And neither has yet found that internal sense of emotional safety, so both keep clashing. Not out of hate, but out of pain. So how do you break the cycle? First, you as the anxious partner need to pause. Not to punish, not to manipulate, but to create space. Space for yourself to breathe. Space for the avoidant to choose. And, most importantly, space for you to stop reacting and start responding from a grounded place. Remember, stepping back isn't giving up. It's the act of someone who is beginning to lead themselves. When you stop pushing, you stop triggering their retreat. When you stop checking, you stop making them feel monitored. When you turn inward, you draw a boundary, and that boundary is the first step in creating real emotional safety for both of you. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for a relationship isn't to fight harder to hold it together, but to allow enough distance so that both people can see clearly. And if they come back not because they were pulled, but because they chose to, that's the foundation of a sustainable connection. And if they don't, at least you've freed yourself from a cycle that was costing you your peace. And from that realization that reacting only prolongs the pain, we shift into a completely different approach. Not repressing emotions, but also not escalating them. Instead of dragging the avoidant partner into heavy conversations, interrogations, or desperate attempts to fix the connection, someone with secure energy learns that sometimes healing doesn't come from going deeper, it comes from going lighter. One of the most powerful and effective ways forward is to lift the energy of the relationship, pulling both people out of emotional stagnation, pressure, and the slow erosion caused by constant expectation. Think of the relationship like a room that's gone stuffy. You don't fix it by lighting a fire. You fix it by opening a window. And in this context, opening a window means creating shared experiences that are fun, fresh, and not emotionally loaded. Not because you're avoiding the truth, but because emotions, especially intimacy, bloom best in safe, relaxed environments, not ones suffocated by emotional heaviness. Take a trip together, try a new skill. See a movie, take a cooking class, explore something outside of your usual four walls. This helps both nervous systems reset, especially the avoidants. They feel like they can breathe again, that they're reconnecting by choice and not by obligation. And in that space, they might begin to see you not as someone demanding more from them, but as the person they once felt light around, drawn to, intrigued by, someone they want to be close to again. For the anxiously attached person, this is a powerful opportunity to shift from reactive to energy leadership. You're no longer trying to use sex or closeness to win back their affection. You're creating the kind of emotional climate where intimacy can grow again, not because it's forced, but because there's room for it. You don't have to do more or be sexier. You just need to let your natural vitality, joy, and centeredness shine through. That's the version of you they were once drawn to now, with new emotional maturity and boundaries. But let's be clear, this is not a manipulation strategy to make them come back. This is a commitment to your own wholeness. Because when you stop trying to control outcomes, you start focusing on what you can control, your energy. You begin to see that you don't have to rescue the relationship, you have to revive yourself. And the incredible thing is, when you do that, the relationship often gets to breathe with you. Sometimes, the deepest healing doesn't come from hours of conversation. It comes from laughter, from a gaze that doesn't carry fear, from a touch that says, "I see you," instead of "prove something to me." These simple, natural moments are what awaken the human side of us, the part that craves connection but fears pain. And when the avoidant starts to feel that the relationship is no longer a place where they're being pushed, but a space they want to re-enter, the door to true intimacy slowly begins to open. That doesn't happen overnight, but you're rebuilding something real: joy, lightness, companionship without pressure. And from there, the avoidant might return not because they were pulled, but because they were invited through safety. And if, after all that, they still don't respond, at least you'll know that you didn't try to fix anything from panic. You led with maturity, and you won't fall into the trap of blaming yourself anymore. Because the real question was never, will they come back? It's, did I come back to myself? And when you return to yourself, you become someone who can love without chasing, someone who can give without self-abandonment, someone who can hope without tying your worth to someone else's response. Sex, if it returns in this kind of environment, won't be a validation test or a desperate grasp at reassurance. It will be a reward, not a rescue. It will be the natural outcome of freedom, safety, and connection between two people who have learned how to stay with themselves before staying with each other. This is the moment when you, the anxiously attached partner, need to hear something essential. Your partner's sexual withdrawal is not a reflection of your worth. It's not an unspoken verdict that you're unattractive, not enough, or undeserving. It's not proof that you're too much, too needy, or not desirable. It's a symptom of an unhealed defense system, their emotional coping mechanism, shaped by old fears, unresolved wounds, and a belief that intimacy is a threat. This is something that's so easy to misread, especially if you tend to internalize everything. You notice them pulling away, withholding touch, not looking at you with desire, and your mind spirals. What did I do wrong? Am I not sexy anymore? Is there someone else? So you begin the mission to fix yourself. You dress more provocatively, analyze every word you say, walk on eggshells to avoid triggering them. You try to become easier, lighter, less of a burden, hoping that being low maintenance will make them desire you again. But let's be honest, have you ever felt emptier the more you tried to do it right? Because deep down, all those efforts come at a cost. You begin to lose yourself. You abandon your boundaries. You slip into the mindset of, what do I need to become to be loved? Instead of remembering, the right person doesn't need you to shrink to fit their fear. Healing, in this context, is not about being more patient while you wait for them to change. It's about coming home to yourself. It begins when you put your hand on your heart and admit, I've let fear drive my actions. I've sacrificed my self-respect to maintain a connection that no longer nourishes me. And that's not something to be ashamed of, that's something to love yourself through. Because all you ever wanted was to feel safe, connected, and loved. You were doing your best, but now you know there's a better way. A way that doesn't exhaust you, doesn't deplete you, doesn't ask you to beg for love. Healing is the journey of challenging the old belief. If they withdraw, I must change to be chosen. No, you don't need to change your essence. You need to reclaim your boundaries. You need to stop scanning their emotions to feel safe. You need to stop measuring your worth by the fluctuations of someone who doesn't know how to show up emotionally. And you need to do the hardest thing of all. Stay with yourself when they don't stay with you. Sit with the pain. Sit with the rejection. Sit with the craving to do something and to pull them back. Because when you stay, you discover something powerful. You're not breaking. You're still here. You're still worthy, even if they don't reflect that back. From that place, you begin to rebuild yourself in small but powerful ways. You stop looking for validation through their gaze. You reconnect with your body not to perform for someone else, but because it's your sacred home. You begin listening to your needs, not just the need to be loved, but the need to rest, to set boundaries, to protect your peace. Step by step, you withdraw your energy from the anxious pursuit. You stop reading their mood and start reading your own. You stop asking, "What do they feel about me?" and start asking, "How do I feel in this relationship?" And if the answer is tired, unsafe, or confused, you get to walk away, not from resentment, not from drama, but from self-love. And in that return, you discover something miraculous. You don't need someone to want you in order to feel whole. You are whole. And if someone can't meet you in that wholeness, it's not love, it's emotional immaturity. A securely attached person doesn't need perfect responses to be at peace. They respond with clarity, not fear. They know that true intimacy doesn't bloom under pressure. It blooms when both people can show up as their full selves, without shame. So let their withdrawal be the moment you come home to yourself. Not to become someone they can't leave, but to become someone you will never abandon. And if you're still here, watching until the very end of this video, I want you to know something. You've done something incredibly brave. You've chosen to face the pain, not to be ruled by it, but to use it as fuel for your healing. You don't need to become less needy, more attractive, or more chill to be loved. You only need to learn how to stay with yourself, especially in the moments when you feel rejected, unseen, or left behind. That's when you become truly powerful, not because you stop feeling, but because you stop abandoning yourself. If this video gave you clarity, comfort, or the feeling of being deeply understood, I invite you to hit subscribe right now. Here on this channel, I'm Jim Roney, and I'll continue guiding you through the emotional patterns of attachment, breaking painful cycles, and helping you build love rooted in boundaries, clarity, and deep self-respect. Drop a comment below. Where did you see yourself in this story? And what are you ready to change to win someone back, but to come back to yourself? Share this video with someone who might need it. Because all of us deserve to be loved, but that love has to start from the safest place possible, within ourselves. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, you're not too much. You're not asking for too much. You're simply learning to love without leaving yourself behind.